All right, here is a video to show you guys some tips and tricks on how to make your presentation for your species research project. So first things first, if you have not yet looked at the assignment, if you go into your classwork tab, not stream, but classwork, go down there. The place where you're going to turn this in is just the species research project, and it says due June 10th. That's when it is due, next a couple Wednesdays from now. So if I click on this, one thing that you're going to want to look at if you haven't already is this document, Species Research Project Guidelines. And on this document, you're going to find some good information. I would check that out before you start putting together your presentation. The first thing you're going to see on the second page is some little pictures and guidelines on how you can make your slideshow. This is what I'd recommend doing as early as you can, just so you can have kind of the bare bones of what that project will look like. So two ways you can do this. Either you can make a presentation in your Google Drive first by clicking New, and then clicking Google Slides, and then you'll have your own new untitled presentation. And then you can go in and click Add or Create and add it in from your Drive. Or you can make one straight into your assignment by clicking the Create option and then making a slides presentation. So once you have that, you'll have an untitled presentation that looks like this. Before you go any further, I highly recommend to make sure that it's a nice, clean, and polished presentation to look through your themes here and pick one that you think will look cool. Okay, so play around with it a few times. The nice thing about slides is it'll change everything in your slides to match the presentation. So I'm gonna go ahead and click this. It's pretty simple, but it has a little bit of color in it, and I'm hoping it'll make it a nice, I like the font, a nice presentation. So I'm going to start. It'll give you always a title slide as your first slide, and I'm just gonna make a general title, gray wolves, that's my species, type my name. I can even write by Larissa Buckles, my name, and then I'm gonna put the period, biology, period 10, let's say. Okay, you can always change these, like this font is a little too small for my liking, so go to more, change this a little bit, but I would recommend keeping the fonts, keeping the colors for the most part as is, just to not make it too messy. This can also have some pictures in it. I always just copy paste, and you can also save pictures, insert them, do all sorts of things like that. And I'll show that a little bit later. For the rest of your presentation though, you're gonna want to have slides that have space for mostly text and maybe some pictures. So to add a new slide, you're gonna click this little arrow button here, and you're gonna wanna click the title and body slide. Okay, even if you want pictures, you can always adjust this to make it smaller, to add a picture in there, but you're gonna want to have mostly these slides. So I'm going to go ahead and just start making headers for my slides. If you look on this document, I've made this part right here basically gives you an outline of what slides I'm expecting. You can always add more slides for any of these if there's more information that will fit, but I'm going to just start making that basic outline to know how long my presentation will be. So the first slide is the basic information. I'm just going to make this one called About Gray Wolves. And then if you want to just keep making those, I'm just going to keep going and make the next one the classification of gray wolves. Let me just stick with one spelling of gray today. Evolution of gray wolves. Keep going through. I think the next one is adaptations. I've given the general idea of what that flow can look like, so I'm kind of just following that, and you can just use these as your headers. Doesn't need to be anything too fancy. I try to keep it simple. If it fits in one line with that font that is selected for you, you should be good. And for some of them, like I'm getting to the research task number 6, niche behaviors, community interactions, you can break these into multiple slides. So I'm actually going to make this one niche and behaviors. You don't always have to put your species name, and then I'm going to make this one community interactions. Say I just know that I have a lot more information about one topic than another, just going to make extra slides for that. So this should honestly not take you that long, just making the skeleton of your presentation. getting into effects of climate change. You can always do it in the order that you researched it, but I also kind of reordered it a little bit to make it flow nicely from basic information into more of the outcomes of disturbance and plans that you've done. So I'm just going to keep making those slides. So eventually when you make all of them, it should be at a minimum of about 10 or 11 slides. This one's going to be outcomes of disturbance. Just keep making those things. And I'll make this one my conservation plan. Actually, one more. So just keep making those as you go along, and then you have a nice outline. If you want to add slides in between, you can add different types of slides that have more space for pictures. These section headers are kind of nice to add some color. You see that I use these a lot in my presentation to break off each week's or each day of the week in each section, so that can be kind of nice. But you know, just the slides like this is good as well. So when you actually start adding your text, most of the time it's going to give you a pretty nice standard font and size. Sometimes though, like this one that I selected, the font is only 13. So if you look here, if I start typing things about gray wolves, it's pretty small. Like even if I get rid of this, it's kind of small. So as someone who constantly is making these slides for you guys and knowing that, you know, even if you're looking at it on a computer screen, you want to be able to read it, I recommend a font of 18 or higher. Okay, so 18 is about the lowest that I'll do, but if I can fit in the text that I need and some pictures, I do 24. And then the other thing that I highly recommend always doing is bullet points. Okay, so say I have like 4 things that I want to put in there. I'm going to make them each a different bullet point. And then another thing that you can do to space it out is adding space after list items. That way you can have a few little bullet points. Once you start adding information in, you can definitely, if you have information already made in your tracker, you can copy that. But I'd say that if you copied information in your tracker that was like copy pasted from the internet, to reword it, rewrite it in simpler terms, shorter, easier, because I don't want to see a ton of text on this. You want it to be short and simple, the most interesting and you think important things that you found in these slideshows. And also you can always close this in a little bit and add some pictures. So say I just want, this is about gray wolves, so I'm just going to do a quick Google search and find a cool picture that I want to put in there. So, you know, I'm just going to take this first one, click copy image, go in my presentation, paste it, and look, it just kind of fits nicely there. So you can just move it around, add my little text. That way you have a nice presentation. So hopefully, you know, I'm pretty fast at this because I do it all the time, but the main thing that I recommend doing is making sure your font's big enough, bullet points, nice headers, and some pictures, and trying to keep it simple as possible so that when you make this whole presentation, it is easy to read for me, for anyone else you want to share it with, and it kind of summarizes everything you've learned. So that's the basic outline. I'm going to finish making this on my own and add some information in so you guys can see a nice example of a clean project to model yours after. And then hopefully that'll make it easier to put together your nice presentation and turn it in June 10th. So that is that, and good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.